weeks? Is it months? Is it maybe just a game or two? We don't know how severe it is. We do know that Coach Budenholzer went to the podium last night, and his answer to all of us was going to get reevaluated in the morning. We're going to take a look at this in the morning. Didn't want to give any other inclination as to where things stood. Not a great sign. So we will keep an eye on it. We will monitor it. But here we are once again. And I don't know what to tell you. I don't. I wish I had the answers. I wish I had a piping hot, off the presses, immediately out of the stove hot take for you today about the Phoenix Suns. I don't have one to provide to you. All I can say to you is, here we go again. Because you shouldn't believe in this team anymore. You shouldn't believe that this team is going to be healthy enough to achieve the goals that we think they can achieve. Because just when you start to believe again, just when you start to buy back in, just when you think for a moment, all three members of the big three are back, here we go, we're going to go back to that stretch that we had at the start of the year, you last, 16 minutes, 20 minutes? You don't even get through a half. You can't finish a full game. And we are right back into this pit of trying to figure out where we go from here. So we will keep an eye on what happens here. But it is not good that as we sit here at 11:08, we are waiting to see what the status update is. We will keep an eye on it here throughout the course of the show. I can tell you that Drew Lock is starting again for the Giants. There's some breaking news for you, but I don't have any breaking news right now about Kevin Durant's status. We talked so much about how this team cannot function. This team cannot be what they are supposed to be if two of the big three are out. If Kevin Durant has to miss some time, you have Bradley Beal, you have Devin Booker. But we already are seeing the Phoenix Suns are taking it easy with Bradley Beal. They are load management. They're calling it injury management, calf management, whatever verbiage they use in the injury report. They are taking it easy with Bradley Beal. So you could potentially be right back in the situation that we were in a couple of weeks ago, talking about a franchise, talking about a team that is Devin Booker and company. And the end company isn't good enough to overcome Bradley Beal and Kevin Durant being sidelined. So I hope for all of us, for the sake of the show, for the sake of the Suns season, that this is not a severe injury. But I hate that I woke up this morning and the first thing I did in order to put together this show was look up how long does it take to recover from an ankle sprain. And it is far too often that with this Phoenix Suns team, we are doing that. It is far too often that the conversation is, how long is blank going to be out for? Instead of, man, did you see how well they played last night? It would be so much easier, and I know I sound like a broken record. It would be so much easier for me to come in here and talk about a team that was healthy and had the big three and was underperforming, and we can talk schematically about what they're doing wrong, and they've got to get better at X, Y, or Z, and they need to pursue this trade or that trade. We can't do any of that because none of that is worth it if this team isn't going to be healthy enough. So you want to take today? You want something hot off the presses today? Here is my message to you as a Phoenix Suns fan. Don't give yourself hope. Don't wake up today, see this news, and think things are going to be okay. You need to prepare for the worst, hope for the best. That's it. That's my message. If you still believe that this team is going to be able to be healthy enough to do all of the things that they are supposed to do this year, they're supposed to be championship caliber. If you still believe that, after example after example of us being in this same spot, week after week, moment after moment, I don't know what to tell you. You are setting yourself up for disappointment here today. You are setting yourself up for disappointment. I can't talk about this team, what their playoff chances are. I can't talk about this team and even remotely begin to discuss how far they could go in the playoffs. We are not even close to having that conversation. Not just because we're only 20 games in. I can't remotely have that conversation because I have no idea what the next 6 weeks look like. Because let's say, for example, they survive this scare and Kevin Durant maybe misses a game or two. You think that's going to be the end of this? You think that's going to be the last time we do this season? You think that's the last time we are going to go to bed and our head is going to hit the pillow and we are going to wake up worrying about what is going on with the Phoenix Suns basketball team if they're going to have one of the key cogs? Any team in the NBA that has championship aspirations has that player or players that if they get hurt, your season is torpedoed. That happens across sports, right? If the Chiefs lose Patrick Mahomes, they're cooked. It's over. But the Phoenix Suns are unique in this way because it's constantly a worry. You go into the game worrying. Even if all three guys are on the court healthy, you go into the game worrying about what this is going to look like and if they're going to make it through the game healthy. And until they shake that stigma, until they get us to a place where that isn't the feeling going into these basketball games, I don't know what the ceiling is for this team. I really don't know. I talked about this being a season of redemption. So far, they are not redeeming themselves. So far, they are playing the same old script. And I'm not blaming anybody, but we just find ourselves in the same situation. Coming up on the other side, is he? Is he not? What's going on down in Tucson? We'll get into that next on the lunch break. KDUS AM 1060. We welcome you back into the program. Appreciate you joining us here. Wednesday edition of the show, the rare Wednesday edition that is just loaded. We got all sorts of stuff. We got more reaction to a conversation we had yesterday on the show. The Durant news is something that we'll keep an eye on. We'll continue to look at the Cardinals and how important this game is on Sunday against the Seattle Seahawks. We are going to have a Marvin Harrison Jr. conversation in hour number 2 of the program, so you're going to want to stay tuned for that. The College Football Playoff Committee did College Football Playoff Committee type stuff last night. Warned you about this. We'll get to that in hour number 2. So much to do, so little time. That is our motto here today on the show. So that being said, let's dive right in to our next story because got done with the show yesterday, left the building, got in my car, drove back home, daughter's softball game, last school game of the year. Then we had our practice. I coached that team, so I was getting ready for that. And, you know, I'm paying attention to things that are going on, starting to map out in my head what the show's going to look like for the next day. And I see a report out there that from rivals and from some people who cover the transfer portal and college football at an extremely high level. And there was a report that Arizona quarterback Noah Fafita was planning on entering the transfer portal. And I had this whole big story ready to tell you all about how There's a identity crisis down there in Tucson. They decided to keep Brett Brennan even after the bad season. They were supposed to be much better this year. Now Fafita is leaving. Where do they go from here? We were going to do this whole deep dive, this whole debrief, this whole breakdown of the situation down in Tucson, because let me let everybody in on a little secret. We do not pull any punches here on this show. The producer of the program today is currently enrolled at Arizona State University. Has a pretty big day, in fact. So can we very quickly, round of applause to our guy, producer Dylan, who has got finals today, has a big presentation to do today, yet he is still here pushing all the buttons for us. So no bones about it. Sun Devil currently enrolled in the university on one side. You've got me. I pull no punches. I'm an alum. I've worked with the team in some capacity, worked with the university, the football side of things, their radio operation, know a lot of people over there. I give you my cards, and they're all out there in front of you. You know where I stand on this. I think personally, and now maybe this is because I'm not from here, I don't have as much of a hatred for the team down south because I didn't live and breathe it from being a young age, grew up on the East Coast. I only have this for the last decade plus, so maybe it's a little different for me. I want U of A to be a good program because I want it to matter when ASU, who I also want to be a good program, when they meet, I want it to matter. One of the reasons why Ohio State-Michigan is one of the biggest rivalries in all of the sport is because of the history of it, but also because more often than not, like 99 out of 100 times when they play, it means everything. Trip to the Big Ten title on the line, college football playoff aspirations, it means the world. Last Saturday meant everything to ASU. It didn't mean a whole lot of anything to U of A other than being the spoiler. I want it where that game's on the calendar and you're battling it out for something because that makes the rivalry better. That makes college football in the state of Arizona better. Maybe that makes me unique. Maybe you disagree. 480-864-1060. I will not shy away from that criticism, but I'm here to tell you I prefer it when both universities are playing well in all sports because it makes it that much sweeter when the two teams meet up and ASU is able to pull off the victory. So please, for my Tucson brethren out there, for those of you who live up here and are supporters of the University of Arizona, I am coming at this from a good place, despite being a Sun Devil. That's the conversation I wanted to have today because I was confused at the news that I heard yesterday of Noah Fafita transferring, and they were keeping Brett Brennan. We heard that a couple days ago. It was all over the map. Well, I had this whole plan ready to go. I had a whole spiel. You basically heard the gist of it. And then Noah Fafita's dad comes out and completely, unequivocally denies the rumors that Fafita is entering the transfer portal. Now, what I find so interesting about this is the original tweet, which was from Rivals and their Twitter page, that covers the transfer portal is still up. The post is still up that talks about Fafita transferring, and it gives credit to the source, one of their writers who covers college football and recruiting. By the way, maybe this makes me the ignorant one, but I'll raise my hand up right now. Did anybody know that today was National Signing Day in college football? Did you know? Shows you how far down we have gone in college football to where recruiting and signing day really doesn't matter because how often are these players going to stay for 2 years, a year, 3 years? How often is that going to happen? Somebody who is in the space, forgot it was National Signing Day today. So that's been going on, but the tweet still stays up. There hasn't been a retraction, at least not one that I can see. But yet you have the perfect source, his dad, Noah Fafita's father, saying he is committed to Arizona. Those rumors are not true. He's not entering the transfer portal. And so I think the place where I would land on this is he's probably not transferring. He's probably not leaving, but the original source hasn't taken down the story. There hasn't been a retraction. It's kind of a he said situation right now. You got a report out there that he is entering the transfer portal. You have probably the best source you can get other than Noah Fafita himself saying we're not going anywhere. Noah is staying here at Arizona, and what a huge blow it would be if this turned out to be true. If Noah Fafita did transfer, I don't know where you go as a program because And it just shows you the volatility of college sports and specifically in college football nowadays. It is so quick. Jedd Fisch got there and turned that thing around in a hurry. He got them right back to prominence. And Nick Saban decides to retire, and it sets off a chain of events. It sets off an absolute chain of events that leads us to Jedd Fisch leaving to go to Washington, and that opening the door for Brett Brennan to come in to U of A. And since then, it has been all downhill. Now, he's gotten the seal of approval to come back. He's got alum, Nick Foles, former quarterback down there, showed his support for Brett Brennan. But the team lacks an identity, and they would have further lacked an identity if Noah Fifita left, because that would, I think, have told you everything you needed to know about how Fifita feels about the situation down there in U of A. So if you want the ringing endorsement for Brett Brennan, it would be Noah Fifita not going anywhere and coming back and thinking that the U of A is the best place for him to be. Because again, I come at this from a place of I want U of A to be good every other game they play other than when they play ASU, because I want those games to matter. I want those rivalry games in basketball, in football, in any sport where these two schools match up. I want it to mean more. I want it to be the highest of high stakes. And it felt if within a week span, you had the end of the U of A season, the disaster that it was, the decision to keep Brett Brennan, which, by the way, is a very divided decision. I mean, I know season ticket holders down there who on Twitter, and I'm not telling tales out of school, you can see it on this person's Twitter account. I won't shout them out, though. But, and if this person has been doing it forever, since I've known him, which is, 5-7 years now, has said that he is going to back off of being a full season ticket holder and only get less. So it is a divided decision. So you have that, and then if paired with that, you would have had Noah Fifita, who is one of the bright spots of this team, or at least supposedly was going into this season. If he was to enter the transfer portal, you would be right back where you were before Jedd Fisch got there. A program that is in chaos, a program that doesn't have a clear direction, a program that isn't trending upward, a program that is lost, doesn't have an identity, doesn't know what they want to be. They would be all over the place. If Noah Fifita comes back, you maybe back off that a little bit. Maybe they start to gain the identity. Maybe in year 2 with Brett Brennan, now that he's in there, now that he has control of the situation, now that he has a lay of the land, now that he got his first year there at U of A as the head coach out of the way, as bad as it was, year 2 can show that progress. But you probably need Noah Fifita in order to be able to do that. And so it was a back and forth yesterday. Because when I saw the news, my immediate reaction was, I don't know what they do down there. Because the reaction to that, your gut reaction is, if Fifita's gone, why are you keeping Brennan? Because Fifita's telling you how he feels, basically. Now, yes, there's NIL money, and maybe he's getting a better deal someplace else, but if Fifita believed in what they were doing down there, he probably would have stayed, because he stayed after Jedd Fisch left. He didn't follow Jedd to Washington, which was a long-standing rumor that him and T-Mac were going to go. They didn't. They both stayed. But it would look extremely reactionary, and it would look like a program that didn't really have a good gauge on the situation to immediately correct course and then fire Brett Brennan. You would look like you have no idea what you're doing, and you can't have that either. And so it was a mess. So where do we stand on this? Noah Fifita's dad has come out and denied this rumor, has said he is not transferring. The original report is still out there. It's still up. I have not seen a retraction yet. So it is something to at least keep an eye on, but they have unequivocally denied it. And at this stage, that to me is a closer source than what these reports are saying. Coming up on the other side, it is the most important game of the week in the NFL. You don't believe me? I'll prove it to you next. It's the Lunch Break, KDUS, AM 1060. lunch break, KDUS AM 1060. We appreciate you joining us here today on the program. The Arizona Cardinals will take on the Seattle Seahawks. And those that crunch the numbers tell us that this is the most important game of the weekend. The most important game out of any game that is going to be played this weekend in the NFL. Look up and down the calendar. Look at Thursday. Look at all the games on Sunday. Look at Monday. Pick a game. There is no game that is going to have a bigger impact on the playoff picture in either conference than Seattle against Arizona. That's it. That's the game. How can I say this so strongly? Well, the lovely folks over at FTN Fantasy, where DVOA is, some really good advanced analytics, they ran the numbers. And if the Seahawks win, that would give them a 62% chance to make the playoffs. So a Seahawks win puts their playoff percentages at 62%. The Cardinals, losing that game in that scenario, their playoff chances go to 17%. Let's flip that for a second. Let's say the Cardinals win on Sunday. So what would their playoff percentages be? A Cardinals win. Think about this. 2-game losing streak, not playing your best football, back to 500, have lost complete control of the division, need to have this game on Sunday, all the pressure in the world. You win the football game, your chances to make the playoffs go to 71%, meaning 7 out of 10 times you are going to make the playoffs. You lose, down to 17%. You win, 71%. Seattle's playoff chances, with a win like we mentioned, would be 62%. With a loss, would drop all the way to 11%. So think about that for a moment. All of the bad stuff that has happened, the 2-game losing streak, falling back to 500, Kyler Murray not playing well, blowing the 19-6 lead to Minnesota, not winning a game that you could have won against Seattle the week prior, falling now back to second place, and you got the Rams also holding on to your coattails. All of that, all of the pressure that sits on this game on Sunday, a win puts you as a 71% chance of making the playoffs. You lose, it's down to 17%. We said yesterday, without knowing these numbers, mind you, I did not know these were the numbers. Just kind of a feel thing after doing this for as long as I've been doing it. We said it's about as much of a must-win as you can get without it actually being a must-win, meaning it's an elimination game. A 17% chance of making the playoffs if you lose, a 71% chance of making the playoffs if you win. That is how important Sunday's game is for the Cardinals. That's the difference. Forget everything that's happened for 12 weeks. Forget the 2-4 start. Forget the 4-game winning streak. Forget losing the last 2 the way that you did. Forget blowing the 19-6 lead. All of it. The good, the bad, the indifferent, all the question marks, all the injuries, everything that's happened. You can throw it all out the window. All that matters, win, 71% chance of making the playoffs, lose, 17% chance. It is all right in front of them. Despite everything, it's all noise. It is one football game to give yourself an almost 3/4 chance of making the playoffs. Nearly a 75% chance of making the playoffs. I'll ask you, would you take those odds? If the Cardinals win on Sunday and have a 71% chance of making the playoffs, would you take it? Would you take a 7-6 football team that has a 71% chance of making the playoffs with 4 games to go, 2 of which are against bad football teams in the Panthers and the Patriots? Would you sign up for that? Would you take that? Well, guess what? All in their control. So I don't want to hear about the injuries. I don't want to hear about Kyler Murray's underperformance. You want to step up. You want to show everybody that you're for real. You want to have your moment as a franchise, Jonathan Gannon. You want to have your moment, Kyler Murray. You want to introduce to the national stage that this is a new era of Cardinals football, that they've got the right GM, that they've got the right coach, that they've got the right coordinators, that they made the right decision by sticking with Kyler Murray. Sunday is your chance. Sunday is the moment. You lose, we're going to come in here on Monday, and I've already told you, season's over. 17% chance to make the playoffs? Yes, mathematically still possible. But you would have handed Seattle a 2-game lead. You would have handled Seattle the tiebreaker, and that's why it's so stark. That's why it goes from 71% with a win to 17% with a loss, because you lose all control. You win, everything's in your hands. Mathematically, at least it should be. You would have control. 2 games against the division, 2 games against winnable opponents. I think that's what gets you to the 71% here is you think if the Cardinals get to 7-6, they've probably got another 2 wins there to get to 9. That probably is going to be enough to win this division. It's all right there in front of them. You lose. You fall to 6-7. You're on a 3-game losing streak. You don't have the tiebreaker. Seattle's going to own the tiebreaker. They're going to be the team that you're most worried about. You lose all control. You then are in the position of needing help. You need to close the gap and then get some help. You need help to close the gap because you need Seattle to drop a couple of games because you can't have the same record. So really, truly, in all honesty, the 2024 Cardinal season, success, failure, playoffs, not playoffs, is likely to come down to what happens on Sunday. Now, there's a lot of pressure that comes with that. There is a lot of nerves that come with that. It's high stakes. But this is what the Cardinals wanted. They made a change at GM. They made a change at coach. They doubled down on Kyler Murray with a new regime. The new regime came in and said, we believe he's our quarterback. Why? Because you feel like your group can win moments like this. You might be ahead of schedule. I don't want to hear that you're ahead of schedule. I don't want to hear that really year 3 is where this thing was supposed to take off. Because I heard about that with another team in town. I heard about that with an Arizona State program that was projected to be a lot worse than you were projected to be this year. And look what they've been able to do. So I don't want to hear that we're ahead of schedule. It's going to be a success no matter what. 49ers, down year. Seattle, right there for the taking. Sunday is your chance. So all of the games this weekend, the game that has the most impact on the playoffs, that has the wildest swing, is this game for the Cardinals. Win, and you set yourself up perfectly to win this division and host a home playoff game. It is still on the table. Lose, and it's going to be another disappointing finish for this team more than likely. It is going to be another conversation that we are going to have about a team that had its chances, that had its moments, and didn't come through. So we spent a lot yesterday and Monday really, talking about how this is about as must win as you can get, how important it is for the Cardinals, how their season is still right there for them. And then I saw this tweet that had these numbers in it, and it just, I think it just further emphasized how important this game is, but seeing the math on paper showed you how much control the Cardinals take by winning this football game. Put yourself back at the beginning of the season when they started the year against Buffalo on the road. Think about that for a moment. If I sat you down before that game started and I said, I'm not going to tell you who they beat, I'm not going to tell you who they lose to, but what I am going to tell you is after 12 games in the NFL, going into week 14 of the NFL season, the Arizona Cardinals are going to be 6-6. The Arizona Cardinals are going to be 1 game out of first place. The Arizona Cardinals are going to play a game in week 14 against Seattle. And that game, if the Cardinals win, would give them a 71% chance of making the playoffs. You would have right then and there signed on the dotted line for that season. You would have signed for the roller coaster ride. You would have signed up for the ultra highs with the wins, the super lows with the lows. You would have signed up for it all because your team, this team, would have been playing meaningful December football with a home playoff game right there for the taking. You would have signed up for it. So here we are. We've gotten to that moment. That game is still on the table. So yeah, they lost 2 in a row. Yeah, they blew a 19-6 lead. Yeah, Kyler Murray probably needed to have that drive. I had that take earlier in the week. You want me to believe in you as a franchise quarterback? That's the drive that you come through with. you put your team in a position to take that field goal to win the football game. I don't necessarily care about the result, make or miss, but you at least put your team in the position to have that moment, to have the game-winning field goal attempt. You didn't. The beautiful thing about sports sometimes is you get an immediate chance at redemption. And you know what? The Arizona Cardinals get an immediate chance at redemption for the last 2 weeks. They get an immediate chance at redemption against the Seattle Seahawks, and they get immediate chance at redemption to come through in crunch time. Because it might not be ball in your hand, less than 2 minutes to go in the fourth quarter, driving to win the football game. It might not be that. But the entire game on Sunday is crunch time for the Arizona Cardinals. All 4 of those quarters are crunch time for the Arizona Cardinals because of the math that we just laid out for you, because of what the numbers tell you this game means for both sides. You have a chance immediately to right the wrongs of the last 2 weeks, all wrapped up in one nice early Christmas present to your fans. That's what's in front of you. Now, you might be saying, Chris, we've seen a roller coaster ride of a season. It's probably going to be another roller coaster ride. It can go either way. I would agree with you. Sunday could go either way. But if this team wants us to make that next leap from we believe they're trending in the right direction to they have now ascended into window open, games like Sunday tell us a lot. And so I told everybody we weren't going to do the fancy preview. We weren't going to break down a team that we just broke down 2 weeks ago. Here's your preview. This is your breakdown of this game. Win, 71% chance to make the playoffs. Lose, 17% chance to make the playoffs. Lose, we start doing the debrief on Monday because the math at some point is not going to math anymore. Win, a whole world of possibilities opens up for this team with the way that their schedule is for the remainder of the season. It's that simple. A chance to right the wrongs of the last 2 weeks. A chance to, in one game, wrap up everything and put yourself right back in the position you were in coming out of the bye week. It'll be a mirage those 2 weeks. That's what's in front of them. We will wrap up hour number 1 here on the other side. We broke this down a lot yesterday. I gave you my thoughts on it. The golden at bat rule in Major League Baseball. Well, since we've had a conversation about it, a lot of other people have had a conversation about it, and there's a lot of pushback. So let's dive back into the golden at-bat rule proposal in Major League Baseball. We'll do it next here on the lunch break. KDUS AM 1060. Back to wrap up hour number 1 of the program. We appreciate you joining us. If there's ever a topic that I think will generate some conversation here for you to join us on 480-864-1060 or to join us over on the YouTube page, KDUS AM 1060, it is this one because this is somewhat of a hot button issue. We touched on it yesterday. There's a podcast that Rob Manfred, the commissioner of Major League Baseball, did a couple of weeks ago. Jason Stark over at The Athletic wrote a story yesterday about it, this rule proposal. It's not actually an official proposal yet. We haven't even crossed that line, but this idea that had been thrown out there for Major League Baseball to spice things up, to maybe energize their game a little bit, to get with the times or at least put themselves in a position that is similar to the other sports, meaning the best players in Major League Baseball having the game in their hands when the game is on the line. It's the uniqueness of baseball that with the game on the line in the bottom of the 9th inning or wherever the highest leverage situation is, it might mean that Corbin Carroll or Ketel Marte aren't up, or Shohei Ohtani or Freddie Freeman or Aaron Judge or Juan Soto or Bobby Witt Jr. or you name a star in the game of baseball, there's a really good chance that they won't be up with the game on the line. We talked about yesterday the golden at-bat rule that had been floated out there by Rob Manfred as something that was creating buzz among the owners. And for those of you who maybe didn't catch the show yesterday or you haven't seen this rule idea, I will recap it for you, and then we'll get into what has been a lot of pushback that I've seen over the last 24 hours or so. The golden at-bat rule or theory, this is nothing new. It's just something that actually hearing it from the mouth of the commissioner kind of changed the conversation here. But the idea being that at one point during the game, the specifics not ironed out yet, at one point during the game, you can basically bat out of order. You can say, you know what? I don't want my backup shortstop who's in for defense, now that the game has become close, I don't want them taking that at bat. Instead, I want to hand it over to my power hitter. I want to hand it over to my best player here for this at bat in this moment of the game. So it would be a one-time bat out of order. You can send anybody up for an at bat. And there is strategy that comes with it. When do you use it? Who in your lineup do you use it for? Just, it's a unique, different way to potentially excite people about the game of baseball. Because look at any other sport. Look at the NFL. Look at the NBA. Look at the NHL. With the game on the line, the best players have the ball, puck in their hand with a chance to win. Now, there has been a lot of pushback to this. There has been a lot of stubbornness is the way that I would describe it. Because I consider myself one of the biggest baseball fans out there. It is my favorite sport. Love it. Part of loving it is I am embedded into everything that there is about baseball. And I very much understand that this sport in particular skews to an older demographic. It skews to a lot of people who are gatekeepers about the game, that like to keep a lot of the tradition about the game. It is almost somewhat of a religion in a lot of aspects. And I think the gatekeeping that occurs around the sport does it more harm than good. I think there's some of it that is good, but there's a lot of it that I think does harm to the growth of the game. I said yesterday that I'm a fan of this rule proposal. I would love to see it in action. I believe it is something that would entice some younger viewers to watch the game late in these moments when these types of things happen. And I do believe it adds a strategy element. And that is one of the criticisms of baseball at time when they change these rules is, you're getting rid of you're adding the DH, getting rid of the pitcher hitting. That's taking away strategy from the game. You're making it to where relievers have to throw to 3 batters. You're taking away the strategy of the game. I don't think that's been true at all. I think both of those use cases, we have seen strategy come back to the game in just different ways. This would add another layer of strategy. But some of the pushback that I've seen is calling this crazy, calling it a gimmick, calling it a carnival act. I've heard it. I've heard everything about this. Here is what I would say to all those people who think this is a gimmick or it's a carnival act or it's a joke or it's not true to the integrity of the game of baseball. Let's talk about 2 different things. Point number 1 that I would use to push back is Rob Manfred isn't saying that this is going to be enacted. He is not saying that it is going into place for 2025. He's just floating it out there as an idea. And if the immediate pushback by everybody in the baseball community to every single thing that gets proposed that changes the game is to say that you're changing the game and we hate it, we hate you, we hate everything about this, you are never going to get the game into a place where it is sustainable for the future. Because let's face it, biggest baseball fan there is. Baseball has a problem. Baseball is staring down a major problem. Baseball is staring down a financial crisis. They've got regional TV networks that are being propped up by the league. The league is having to buy these or run these rights for teams. They don't have the national deals that the NBA or the NFL has. They don't have a salary cap that keeps things competitive for all the teams. They have problems. They have probably a handful of TV networks that make money and teams that make a lot of money from their TV deals. You got the two teams in New York. You got Boston. You have LA, maybe Chicago. That's about it. You got other teams, this market included. Major League Baseball is running the Arizona Diamondbacks TV network. That is revenue that the Diamondbacks cannot bring in to reinvest it into their team to maybe increase payroll and acquire players. You don't think that that's a problem that we are staring down? There is a CBA that is about to expire after the 2026 season. You don't think that there's an impending work stoppage? Remember how the last one went? We missed opening day. There were things that got impacted because of the last work stoppage. I think it's going to be worse next time around. So Major League Baseball is not in a good place right now. There's a lot of good things happening with the game. You had just had a Dodgers-Yankees World Series that, while it probably made most of us throw up in our mouths, it is still good for the growth of the game. The two biggest brands in the sport, both globally and here in the United States, playing on the world stage. It was a big deal. Baseball has to embrace some of this unique stuff. So pushback number one that I would have is stop being stubborn every single time something gets thrown out there as a change. Because let me tell you, the last time we did this, it was when we were instituting a pitch clock. And it was when we were instituting the rules to speed up the game. Guess what? That is one of the best things that they have done in a really long time. It is one of the best decisions that they have made because it has sped up the game to a place where even somebody like me, even somebody who loves the game, watches it every single day, on most days is watching two teams. If you're watching on YouTube, you can see on my hat the one team that I watch pretty regularly, and then I'm also watching the team here in town for the show because I care about this team as well. Got a lot of family who root for this team. I have become embedded into this community, so I watch and root for that team as well. Maybe not when they're playing the team that's on the hat, but nevertheless, that's good for the game. It's good that it was sped up. Watching a lot of baseball. I don't need baseball games taking 3.5, 4 hours. Baseball can be extremely strategic, extremely entertaining. It can be everything that it needs to be in 2 hours and 45 minutes. And we have seen that the time and length of games has gone down, which means there's more action, which is the thing that Major League Baseball was trying to do. That was a good change. Stop being so difficult when it comes to change. That's pushback number one to that crowd. Pushback number two that I would have. Other leagues make rule changes all the time. All the time. Does everybody remember the year? And I used this example yesterday, but I'm going to use it again today. Does everybody remember the year where the NFL, during actual meaningful football games in the regular season, allowed you to throw the red challenge flag for pass interference and allowed you to say, I don't think that was pass interference. Go look at it. Remember when we did that for an entire season? Remember when that was a rule that was in place? And then you know what happened at the end of that season? The NFL got feedback from the teams, got feedback obviously from fans, got feedback from the officials, took all that feedback, and you know what they decided to do? They got rid of that as a rule. That's going to be a footnote. I'm sure there's half of this audience that didn't even remember that that was a thing until I just told you about it. And then you said, oh yeah, that's right, they did do that. Just because something gets instituted doesn't mean it will stand the test of time. It does not mean that it is written in stone and has to be the law of the land forever. You can put something in place, evaluate how it works, decide on something, and then say, you know what? That didn't work out the way that it was supposed to. We're going to move on from it. And then also there's this idea of if you give all these guys these extra at-bats, what does it do to records? Guess what? And I know baseball is a extremely historic sport. And trust me, it's one of the things I love about it is that you're able to go back and look at all of this data and look at all of these numbers. But I'm here to tell you, the NFL has changed over time, and the NFL has records, passing records, that get obliterated on a regular basis. Obliterated. The numbers that we are seeing in 2024 compared to what we saw in the 80s, the 70s, the 60s in football, it's night and day. People could say, oh, but Chris, baseball, at the end of the day, it's been the same game. Let me let you in on a little secret, everybody. There was something called the dead ball era. There were times where starting pitchers were throwing like every day. The game changes. There are different eras of the sport. And with that era change comes different things. And numbers changing and records changing is a part of that. I hate to be this brass about it. Get over it. Records are there to be broken. Records are there to be altered. That's the way sports work. Records are not designed to always stand the test of time. Records are not there to be one person's record forever. Now, are there some that will? Yes. I don't think anyone's beating Joe DiMaggio's 56-game hitting streak. I don't think anyone is going to hit in a season as many times as Ted Williams did and have the batting record. There are records. Pete Rose's all-time hit record, I don't think it's going to be broken, and if it does, it's going to be a very, very, very far way away. Records are designed to be broken. And so for a sport that I love, and there are people in the sport that I know work in the sport, that love the sport, and are coming at this from a good place. But I'm here to tell you, you can't be so difficult about this. This isn't even something that Rob Manfred said, hey, we're going to try this in AA. Or we're going to try this in AAA. He said it on a podcast, and I don't even want to call it an offhand comment because he clearly floated it for a reason, but it was a comment in a podcast. It was followed up by a story in The Athletic by Jason Stark, who did a great job covering it from both sides. If this is how we're going to react as a sport, and I say we as somebody who loves the sport, if this is the way we are going to react to any little rule change, and you might say it's a seismic rule change, but if this is how we're going to act to anything that baseball tries to do, to try to reinvent itself, to try to gain more eyeballs, if this is how difficult we're going to be, then we are going to do more damage to the sport than you think these rule changes are going to do to the sport. Because all the damage that you think you're going to do to the sport by instituting this golden at bat, by allowing these moments to happen, you are doing more damage by being this difficult and blocking every single rule proposal that gets put out there. Is this the best thing that I've heard of when it comes to rule proposals recently in Major League Baseball? No. Do I personally like it? I've grown more fond of it in the last 24 hours. I was fond of it yesterday. I said I kind of liked it. I'm growing more fond of it, and I would like to see it, even if it's just for a season. I would like to see it in action to see what it looks like. But there's no reason to not try something for a season. If it doesn't work, you just go back to the way things were. That's okay. It's okay to admit, hey, a rule change didn't work. The NFL changed their kickoff this year. I guarantee you the kickoff rule probably isn't going to look exactly the same next year as it did this year. The NFL changes rules constantly. You don't hear the gripe from everybody over that. So there's just so much pushback yesterday. A lot of people in baseball circles, baseball broadcasters, I heard it all across the board. At the end of the day, here is where I come down on this. Do I think this is the best proposal of all time? No. Do I think it is a proposal worth trying? I do. I think we should have more conversations like this. I think we should debate and discuss and go back and forth on all sorts of different rule proposals and rule ideas and ideas to change the game. That's how you make your game better. Some of them are going to be great. Some of them are going to stink. But having that conversation is what is good for the game. What's not good for the game is, I think, this constant, oh, no, you can't change baseball. Okay. That's the way you're going to be. Tell me how baseball looks in 2027 with a work stoppage. Tell me what that looks like. There's a lot of changes that baseball needs to undergo. This, on the totem pole, would be pretty low. A fantastic hour number one of the show in the books, if I do say so myself. Hour number two right around the corner. All right, College Football Playoff Committee. You got some explaining to do. That's how we'll start hour number two of the program next. The lunch break, KDUS, AM 1060. Hour number 2 of the program starts with the College Football Playoff Committee. Welcome back into the lunch break. KDUS AM 1060. Chris Schubert here with you. Appreciate you joining us. There are a bunch of different ways you can join the conversation here on the show. You can call 480-864-1060. You can also leave a comment over on the YouTube chat, KDUS AM 1060 over there. You can watch the video version of the show as well. Okay, well, we got our rankings last night for the College Football Playoff Committee, and I told you how this was going to go. I warned you that they were going to keep Arizona State and Iowa State very close together, and that's exactly what they did to hedge. Arizona State came in at number 15. Iowa State came in at number 16, basically forecasting that whoever wins the Big 12 is going to be probably on the outside looking in, because right now the way they have it, they have Oregon, Texas, SMU as the Big Ten, SEC, ACC champs that will get the bye. And then they have Boise State also getting the bye for winning the Mountain West, because they have Boise State ranked higher than ASU. That's how the tiebreaker will work. So Boise State being 10, ASU being 15th, tells you that they think Boise State is better than ASU. And I just don't see a world where if both teams win this weekend, they are going to all of a sudden change their tune. I don't think all of a sudden they're going to find religion and be like, oh, ASU is actually a better team than Boise State. We're going to put ASU above Boise State, and they're going to make up 5 spots if both teams win. I don't think that's going to happen. So your path to getting a bye is you are the biggest UNLV fan in the world this weekend. That's my message to you. Because UNLV, 20th in the country right now, in the Mountain West, they will be playing Boise State. If they win and ASU beats Iowa State, let's look at this math. UNLV 20 would have beaten number 10 Boise State. ASU right now 15 would have beaten number 16 Iowa State. They would have gotten to 11 wins. That probably moves them above a lot of the teams right now that are at 9 or 10 wins that aren't going to play for a conference championship. And so that probably clears the path for ASU to get that bye. So ASU win, UNLV beats Boise State. I think that's your path for ASU getting a bye. But there is a lot to discuss from this college football playoff ranking, because the committee did committee things. The committee, inconsistency, maybe you want to call it, they, I think, made things more difficult than they had to be. We can start with what they did to Miami. Maybe we want to start with what they did to Alabama. I don't know. But Miami at 10-2, they are not playing for the ACC title game. And they've got a bunch of 9-3 schools in front of them. So they finished their regular season. They are 10-2. They will not be playing for the ACC championship, like I just said. And they got a bunch of 9-3 SEC schools in front of them. So what is the committee telling us? What is the committee saying is going to happen here? Well, at 12, with a 9-3 Alabama team in front of them, they also have Ole Miss and South Carolina right behind them, also vying for that spot. Instead, the committee said to us, we think Alabama at 9-3 is better than Miami at 10-2, where one of Miami's 2 losses was a road loss to the number 22 team in the country. And like this ESPN story about the angry index points out, Miami lost more spots in the rankings for a road defeat to Syracuse, number 22, than Ohio State dropped for losing to 7-5 Michigan. Again, I ask everybody to make it make sense. So they put Miami at number 12. So let's do this math real quick. 1 through 11 is Oregon, Texas, Penn State, Notre Dame, Georgia, Ohio State, Tennessee, SMU, Indiana, Boise, Alabama. That's 1 through 11. So, and again, 12-team playoff, the automatic bids. I'll try to work through this math pretty quickly here to not confuse everybody. But Oregon, Texas, SMU, and Boise are your 4 conference winners. They're inside the top 12. They're going to get the automatic bye. Then after that, you're going to start to take the at-larges. Well, number 3, Penn State, they're going to be an at-large. Number 4, Notre Dame, goes down the list. Georgia, Ohio State, Tennessee, Indiana, and Alabama. There's 11 of the 12. Well, guess what? You have a 5th automatic conference bid. That's going to go to the Big 12. It's either going to go to ASU and Iowa State, who are right now outside of the top 12. So that means only 11 of the top 12 are going to go in there. And that means at number 12, Miami, they're going to miss out. That means number 13, Ole Miss is going to miss out. That means number 14, South Carolina is going to miss out. So Miami right now on the outside looking in, and I don't know where their help is coming from. Because even if Boise loses and Miami moves up, potentially, they're still going to be on the outside looking in because ASU is going to get that spot and Alabama is going to move up as well. Now, there's the Ole Miss conundrum here. Because I don't know what more Ole Miss has to do. Because Ole Miss and Alabama both beat South Carolina, but Ole Miss crushed South Carolina. Alabama won by 2. Ole Miss and Alabama both beat Georgia, who's number 5. And Ole Miss ranked higher in SP+. They, strength of schedule-wise, is kind of close, but not really. And yet Ole Miss, whose losses aren't as bad as Alabama's, and has better wins, and the common opponents, they played better than. That Georgia game, Alabama almost lost that game. Yet Ole Miss, who has the same record as Alabama, is behind them. The committee has just decided. The committee has just made up their mind. Like, hey, we just think Alabama's going to be good in the college football playoff, so we're just going to throw you in there. That's it. Because there's no statistical basis for doing so. There's no statistical basis for Alabama to be in front of Mississippi, Ole Miss. There's no reason for it. Statistically, there's nothing. There's no resume metric or stat you can throw at me to tell me that. So again, the committee is kind of going by the eye test, but also kind of going with their gut feel, and it's just all over the place. And oh, by the way, they only put ASU 15th. 10-2 playing for a conference championship, where South Carolina, Miami, who's also 10-2, they're not playing for a conference championship. They're behind. They're in front of ASU. Again, I asked the committee to make it make sense, because Georgia and Texas are going to play for the SEC title. So all those other teams, they're not going to gain an extra win. ASU can go to 11 wins. So I don't know, college football playoff committee. Everybody thought your job was going to be made easier when you went to 12 teams. You've now proven to us all that you still don't know what you're doing. Coming up on the other side, do the Arizona Cardinals have a Marvin Harrison Jr. problem? I'll explain next on the lunch break, KDUS AM 1060. Kevin Durant going to be reevaluated in a week. That is the report from Shams Charania of ESPN. 1 week at least for Kevin Durant, because that is just a reevaluation point. So I pulled out the cellular phone. I went to the app. I saw the schedule for the Phoenix Suns, and this is what the Suns' schedule looks like. So reevaluated in a week. So let's do some math. It is Wednesday, December 4th. So that means he is going to be reevaluated next Wednesday, December 11th. So looking at the calendar for the Phoenix Suns, Kevin Durant is scheduled to miss at least the next 3 games. He is going to miss Thursday's game against the Pelicans. He is going to miss Saturday's game against the Heat. And he is going to miss Sunday's game against the Magic. Then after that, he gets reevaluated, and then they have a stretch of games starting on Friday the 13th. So at least 3 games, the Suns will be without Kevin Durant. They are 1-6 without Kevin Durant this season. Now, 5 of those 7 games or 6 losses took place without Bradley Beal as well. So really only 2 games did they play where it was Devin Booker and Bradley Beal and no Kevin Durant. They went 1-1 in that stretch. They're going to play a 4-18 Pelicans team. They're going to play a 9-10 Heat team, and then they're going to play a 15-8 Magic team. So, if you're just box score scouting, not the most difficult stretch to be without Kevin Durant, not the most challenging time to miss Kevin Durant, but that is under the assumption that it is only these 3 games that he misses. He is only being reevaluated in a week, which means they very clearly, this is at least a low sprain. What did we do earlier with the radio doctor? Mild sprain is the term that we used. So it's at least a mild sprain because it's 1 week, but it is a reevaluation. It's not a, we think he's only going to miss a week. It's he's day to day. No, we can't even begin to discuss what this looks like for at least another week. So he's going to miss at least these next 3 games. And then we go from there to see how many more games in the month of December he could potentially miss. If it is a mild sprain and he's going to have to miss another week, then we start talking about games against the Jazz, Trailblazers, Pacers, Pistons. Again, not the most difficult stretch, at least record-wise. Strength of schedule, steal from the NFL, they're not playing a ton of tough teams. They don't have a huge slate of games like they do maybe at the end of the month. This is what they end the month with. The Nuggets on the 23rd, the Nuggets again on Christmas, the Mavs who are 14-8, the Warriors who are 12-8, the Grizzlies who are 14-8. That's who they play down the stretch in December. So that stretch of 5 games is against teams with records above 500. It's also against Western Conference opponents. Him missing that stretch would be way more impactful than him missing this stretch. So it is at least the the Pelicans, Heat, and Magic that Kevin Durant will be out for. So he's going to miss at least the next 3 games. He's being reevaluated in a week, and we will see what this looks like. Here we go again, because it's not just a being super cautious and they sat him down last night and everything came back okay today, and he's going to maybe miss a game. But no, he's at least going to miss the next 3 games and is going to get reevaluated in the coming weeks. He's out at least 1 week due to the ankle. That according to Shams Charania. A left ankle sprain, and we'll see what they look like. It is at least a week. That is the way it is being referred to as in the report. He will be reevaluated in 1 week after the ankle sprain. So we will see what happens, but out for at least the next 3 games. Anything after that, we will find out next Wednesday. Okay, back to what we are originally scheduled programming here, which was a conversation about the Cardinals having a Marvin Harrison Jr. problem. And I don't mean that as a shot at the kid. I mean that as, why isn't he putting up the numbers that we expected a top 5 overall draft pick to put up? Why has it been such a struggle to get him involved? And I ran some numbers this morning, and I was surprised. Maybe I shouldn't have been, but I was surprised at what the numbers told me. During the 4-game winning streak that the Cardinals had, right? They had the 4-game winning streak and then their most recent 2-game losing streak. Well, during the 2-game losing streak, so it's only a 2-game sample size, but this is what the average output over those 2 games were for Marvin Harrison Jr. 4 catches per game, 53.5 yards, and 1 total touchdown over those 2 games. So he averaged he averaged 4 catches a game, averaged about 54 yards, and had 1 touchdown over those 2 games. So that's during the 2-game losing streak. And you might point at those numbers and say, this is a top 5 overall pick. This is a franchise cornerstone wide receiver that we expect to be here for a long time. We expect to be an all-pro. Those numbers have to be better than that. What did it look like during the 4-game winning streak that they went on? Here is what Marvin Harrison Jr.'s output was, averaged out over that 4-game winning streak. He averaged 4 catches per game. He averaged 55 yards per game and had 2 total touchdowns. Those numbers during the 4-game winning streak don't look all that much different from his numbers during the 2-game losing streak. So the Cardinals had that winning streak, won 4 games, put themselves into first place, 6-4, coming out of the bye, all the stuff that we talked about. And they did that with Marvin Harrison Jr. being the same receiver that he's been for the last 2 weeks when they lost to Seattle up in Seattle and when they blew a 19-6 lead against Minnesota, and he caught the touchdown in that game. For the season, Marvin Harrison Jr. has 41 catches for 607 yards and 7 touchdowns. His pace for this season, his 17-game pace, is 58 catches, 859 yards, and 10 touchdowns. That is what the projected output is for Marvin Harrison Jr. in his rookie season. And the only way that I know how to do this and have this conversation is, okay, you were the top wide receiver taken in your draft. What have the other top wide receivers in recent drafts done in their rookie season? Because that's the way to gauge it. Yeah, the teams are going to be different, but are we putting too high of expectations on Marvin Harrison Jr. when if his output ends up being around 60 catches, around 900 yards, and 10 touchdowns, should we really be that upset? Well, the top wide receiver last year in 2023 was Jackson Smith-Njigba. He was the 20th overall pick. So 20th overall, 4th overall, there's a bit of a difference. But he had 63 catches, 628 yards, and 4 touchdowns. Well, Marvin Harrison Jr. already has more touchdowns than that, is almost got more yards than that, and is behind on catches, but his pace says that he's going to pass in yards and has already passed on touchdowns. So, okay. So, no, Marvin Harrison Jr. exceeding expectations from the first wide receiver that was taken in the 2023 draft. What if we go back a year before that? What if we go to 2022? Drake London, the 8th overall pick. All right. Now we're getting a little closer. Now we're in the top 10. Marvin Harrison Jr. a top 5 pick. Drake London a top 10 pick. Now we're getting closer to a fair evaluation. 72 catches for Drake London, 866 yards, and 4 touchdowns. So based on his pace, he's going to have less catches, fewer catches, and is going to have fewer yards. Close, but fewer yards if he hits the pace that he's on for this season. Now, he does have more touchdowns already with 7. There was another top 10 receiver that year, Garrett Wilson for the New York Jets, who, by the way, had some of the worst quarterback play that season in New York. 83 catches, 1,103 yards, 4 touchdowns. Another top 10 pick that year, over 1,100 yards and 83 catches. Marvin Harrison Jr. would need to almost double his current output through the first 12 games of the season to reach that number. Let's go back a year before that. Jamar Chase was selected, 5th overall. Now we're basically right in the same stratosphere. Jamar Chase, that season, 81 catches, 1,455 yards, 13 touchdowns. There were 2 other receivers taken in the top 10 that year, Jalen Waddle and Devonta Smith. Waddle, 104 catches, 1,015 yards. Devonta Smith, 64 catches, 916 yards, 5 touchdowns. I've got 3 receivers that were drafted in the top 10 recently that had 1,000-yard rookie seasons. Garrett Wilson, Jamar Chase, Jalen Waddle. Absurd rookie seasons. The Arizona Cardinals need to figure out a way to get Marvin Harrison Jr. more involved. This shouldn't be this difficult. Recent draft history tells us he should be better than what he has done so far. Because his 606 yards right now he's got more games to play. He's got 5 more games on the calendar. But it would be lower than everybody else right now. He will more than likely pass Jackson Smith-Njigba in the next game. But he's not catching Garrett Wilson. He's not catching Jamar Chase. He's not catching Jalen Waddle. It doesn't look like he's going to catch Devonta Smith. He might catch Drake London. All of those receivers. And think of the teams they're on. Atlanta, all we heard. They don't know how to use Kyle Pitts. They don't know how to use Drake London. They had to fire coaches and change quarterbacks. Not a team that is known for being an offensive juggernaut and utilizing their players correctly. Garrett Wilson, the New York Jets, Zach Wilson throwing him the ball, 1,100 yards. Jamar Chase, okay, he has Joe Burrow. It's nice to have Joe Burrow. Devonta Smith, Jalen Waddle, okay, your quarterback plays pretty good. But it's not like all of these teams are offensive juggernauts. They have to figure out a way to do more with Marvin Harrison Jr. This is a disappointing rookie season. His numbers need to be better than this because coming out in the draft, he was more talented than a lot of these guys on this list. In a redraft, or if he was thrown into the 2023 draft class, he would be taken in front of Jackson Smith and Jigba. He would have been taken in front of Drake London. He would have been taken in front of Garrett Wilson. And I don't think he's going to have a rookie season that is better than those rookie seasons. Kyler has to be better. He has to be better. Drew Petzing has to be better. There needs to be a further emphasis on getting him more involved. It should not be week 14, and we should be having this conversation. You drafted a bona fide number one wide receiver in the top 5. It should not be a conversation in week 14 of the regular season. How do we get him more involved? How do we get him into the flow of this offense? This should be a week 3, week 4 conversation. Should not be a conversation in week 14 with the playoffs on the line. They've got to figure it out, and they have to do so in a hurry. Coming up on the other side, it looks like it's going to happen this week. Is it going to open up the floodgates? We'll do that next on the lunch break. KDUS AM 1060. The lunch break, KDUS AM 1060. Appreciate you joining us here today on the program. However you may be listening to us, the AM side, the HD side, whether you're listening on the app, maybe you are watching on YouTube, however you are consuming the show, maybe you're listening to this in the podcast form. Maybe this is current me talking to future me, but for you, it's past me. Maybe that's what you're doing. However you are consuming the show, we greatly appreciate you joining us here. We know you have choices, and the fact that you choose to spend your lunch break with us on our lunch break, we very much appreciate it. We have been super excited with the way things have gone here in the early stages of launching this show, doing this show, and we are fully expecting 2025 to be a huge year here for not only the show, but for the station at large. And so we appreciate you joining us here on this journey. You want to join the conversation if you are joining us live, 480-864-1060 is the phone number. You can also hop on over to the YouTube, KDUS AM 1060 over there, and leave a comment, and we will read it out on the air, as long as it's, entertaining and insightful. If you just say, hey, I don't think that's going to get you on the air. It might. You got to see what mood I'm in at the time, but I don't think it's going to get you on the air. It's got to be insightful. It's got to be thought-provoking. It's got to continue the conversation. You can't just be like, hey, Chris, can you shout me out? Probably not. You're probably not going to get a shout-out. Tim in Phoenix. It's probably not going to happen. I just made that up, but it's just not going to happen. What does look like it's going to happen, and it looks like it's going to happen a little bit quicker than we all anticipated, it appears as if we are drawing closer and closer. It could be as early as tomorrow, maybe Friday. It could be today. I think we are fully, on Juan Soto watch. Because it appears as if before the winter meetings start, this weekend into next week, Juan Soto is going to have made his decision on where he is going to play baseball in 2025 and beyond. A bunch of teams in the mix: Yankees, Mets, Red Sox, Blue Jays, Dodgers, Phillies, a lot of teams in the mix. And Scott Boras' client, a lot of money, didn't necessarily think this was going to happen this quickly. You saw last year what Scott Boras' clients went through. It took a while. This year, a little bit of a change in tune. A lot of his clients have been signing pretty early. Frankie Montas, Yusei Kikuchi. Now it looks like Juan Soto is going to sign, and it looks like he's going to be able to have that introductory press conference down there at the winter meetings, put on the jersey, answer some questions, and start his next chapter. It was reported that he is starting to eliminate teams from contention. And once you start doing that, it feels like you're getting down to the nitty-gritty, and maybe you're trying to get the last dollar from whoever you can get it from. And there are really two teams that stand out in this race. It is the defending American League champion New York Yankees, which Juan Soto was a part of last season, was one of the big reasons why they made it to the World Series, and the New York Mets, the other team in that town, a team that has money to burn, money to spend, and want to get Juan Soto, want to take their team that was 2 wins away from going to the World Series over the top for next season. So they're interested. They're in. They have the most money to offer because they have the wealthiest owner in Major League Baseball with Steve Cohen. So it is a battle of the New York teams. You also can't rule out Boston. You can't rule out the Dodgers making an offer, but all indications are it is the two New York teams that are the front runners, that are the favorites, and they are the ones battling it out, kind of like we all thought it was going to be when this process started. The Yankees, because they traded for him, because they have spent money in the past, they're not afraid to spend big dollars, and then the Mets, because we know they've been chomping at the bit to spend big dollars. So that's going to happen this week more than likely. And the number's going to be big. It's going to be more than what Shohei Ohtani's value on his present-day deal is, which is about $46 million. It's going to come in north of that. It's going to probably start with a 5. I think it could be 55. I think it could be close to 60. I think anything's on the table when it comes to Juan Soto and where he could end up. But more importantly, this not dragging on past the winter meetings, this not dragging on into December. I mean, I remember the Shohei Ohtani free agency. It was like the middle of December. It was right around Christmas time, because I remember where I was in Vegas with some family for my fiance's birthday. We went up there for a concert, and this was really close to Christmas. It was maybe the week weekend before Christmas, and we were up there walking through a mall, and all of a sudden my phone just starts going off with people texting me and tweets and just everything about Shohei Ohtani, the number, where he went, the deferrals, everything. That was kind of late. That was close to Christmas, close to the new year. This happening before the winter meetings. This happening before it's the holiday season. That would be a nice thing for baseball to have that tentpole free agent sign and have that buzz and have that conversation. And it is going to be a marquee event wherever he ends up signing. And here's why it is going to be a marquee event where he ends up signing. Because, yeah, there's going to be a team that got Juan Soto and is going to have a future Hall of Fame player on their team for the foreseeable future in a big way and is going to help them accelerate their championship window. But also, it is going to, I think, open up the floodgates. It is going to open up the market because you've got the Red Sox, you've got the Blue Jays, you've got the Dodgers, you've got the Yankees, you've got the Mets. You've got 5 teams interested in Juan Soto, giving offers to Juan Soto. Now, he's starting to eliminate teams, so maybe we're down to just a couple. But we've got 5 teams that we can't eliminate because we don't have any sources that tell us that we can eliminate them. So we got 5 teams, and we got 1 Juan Soto, which means there are 4 teams that were willing to spend at least some level of big money for Juan Soto and would have been told no. Those teams, I think all of them, are going to pivot and still spend big money, but do it elsewhere. I don't know if that's Alex Bregman. I don't know if that's Corbin Burns or Max Fried. I don't know if it's a trade for Nolan Arenado. All I know is that the 4 teams of the 5 that we mentioned that don't get Juan Soto, they are still going to be active. Not a single one of these teams are going to say, aw, shucks, we tried. We gave it a run for Juan Soto. We offered $500, $600, $700 million, and we didn't get him. We're just going to pack it in and sign a bunch of minor league contracts and not spend more than $10 million on a player. No, they're still going to spend big money. The Yankees miss out on Juan Soto. They need to replace Juan Soto. They need to add a first baseman. They need to add a third baseman. They need to add relievers to their bullpen. They're still going to spend money. They might go sign Corbin Burns as their pivot. They might sign Alex Bregman. The New York Mets, if they don't get Juan Soto, they have $170 million burning a hole in their pocket. And that's just the difference between last year's budget and what their current budget is right now, what their current payroll is right now. They need a first baseman. Pete Alonso's gone. They need a DH. They want outfield help. They need 2 more starters. They're spending money. The Red Sox are poking around the Corbin Burns market, the Max Fried market. They're looking for starters. They're looking for offense. They might pivot and sign a Bregman. They might try to bring back Tyler O'Neill. The Dodgers, I don't know what they need. I can't give you, a breakdown of what they need just like I did with those other 3 teams, but they're going to spend because that's just what they do. Their president of baseball ops, I think is his official title, Andrew Friedman, mentioned that, hey, we're going to spend money now so that we're set with our team in February instead of needing to set our team in July. So basically a big signal to the rest of Major League Baseball. They're not done. They're not going away. The Blue Jays have been trying to spend big money for years. They offered the same deal to Shohei Ohtani. They're interested in giving money to Juan Soto. They're at some point going to try to land a big fish to pair with Vlad Guerrero Jr. up there in Toronto and Bo Bichette and the core that they have up there. All of these teams, if they miss out on Juan Soto, are going to pivot. And what that means is the floodgates are going to open. Because and it's not 100% of your efforts, because the Mets have made some signings, the Yankees have done some stuff, the Red Sox have done some stuff already. They signed Aroldis Chapman yesterday. So you can do other things. The Dodgers have already signed Blake Snell, right? Teams can make moves. But when a large extent of your efforts are focused on Juan Soto and what comes with that, and the money and the pursuit and everything that is about that, you aren't maybe necessarily giving it your all for a Corbin Burns or another hitter or anything else that could improve your team. And so once the Juan Soto thing clears up, once you're told you're out or you're the team, it allows the rest of your plans to take place. What that also does is it opens up those players who are waiting to see where Juan Soto goes and waiting to see what other suitors could emerge for them because Juan Soto goes someplace else. That then opens up the market. that's where you start to see movement. That's where maybe we start to see the Arizona Diamondbacks do something here because they haven't really done a whole lot so far. It's been relatively quiet for them. They have not made that major addition that we think they can make. We know what the laundry list is. They need to figure out what they're doing at first base. I think they need to add another high-leverage reliever. I think they need to add a DH or a corner outfield type. That's the shopping list. That's the grocery list for Mike Hazen. Those markets haven't moved yet. Why? We are waiting for Juan Soto. We are waiting for that domino to fall. We are waiting for him to pick his next team because it is going to allow other things to move. Because there are teams and players that teams are going to a player and saying, hey, we're interested in you, but we got to see this through. We got to wait this out. And so that player wants to wait and see that out because if there are more teams interested in their services, that drives up the price. That makes them more money. You don't want to be the first through the wall and sign for a contract, and then all of a sudden your contract is not as much as you could have gotten if you maybe just would have waited a little bit. That is the game of chicken that everybody is playing. Scott Boras played it in a big way last year. He lost. This year, it's a little different so far. The floodgates are about to open because I think at some point this week, I don't know if it's going to be tomorrow. I don't know if it's going to be Friday. I have a feeling this week at some point, at some point on this show, we are going to get a chance to discuss Juan Soto signed somewhere. All of this can start, and we can react to it, and we can talk about what it means for the Diamondbacks, especially if it's the Dodgers or the Mets, teams that they will be directly competing with in the National League. If it's the Yankees or the Blue Jays or the Red Sox, somebody in the American League, we can also talk about what we think the Dodgers are going to do, what we think the Mets are going to do, what we think these other teams, again, that are competing directly with the Diamondbacks are going to do, and how that could impact the Diamondbacks' pursuits this offseason. That's what opens up the moment Juan Soto signs. That's what opens up the moment this happens and this gets completed. The floodgates open. And I think we're going to be able to have that conversation later on this week. We wrap up this edition of The Lunch Break next. We do it with the leftovers, all the stories that we didn't get to throughout the course of the show. We will do it next here on The Lunch Break, KDUS AM 1060. Back to wrap up today's edition of The Lunch Break, KDUS AM 1060. Appreciate you joining us here on another edition of the show. I want to get back into baseball for just a moment because I think a lot has been made of this, and we've discussed it at length here on this show before. And I have been of the opinion that this is a tool that everybody has at their disposal, and it's up to each individual team, their appetite to use it. I understand the frustration that people have with this tool and the way that the Dodgers are using it. But I did see a story that I think is probably going to further emphasize that point of view, that this is a problem that baseball needs to do something about. Because after the contracts that the Dodgers have signed for Blake Snell and Tommy Edman to go along with the money that they have given to Shohei Ohtani, the money that Mookie Betts has with deferrals, Freddie Freeman, Will Smith, Teoscar Hernandez, all of these deferrals that they have. Their deferral bill, their deferral payments add up to more than $1 billion that is owed to 7 players, the 7 players that I just mentioned, from 2028, so that starts in 4 years from now, all the way through 2046. So Blake Snell has $66 million in deferrals. That is going to be paid out to him through 2046. Tommy Edman, who signed an extension with them for 5 years, $74 million, has $25 million in deferrals. That's through July 1st of 2044. Shohei Ohtani has $680 million in deferrals from 2034 to 2043. Mookie Betts has $115 million in deferrals from 2033 to 2044. Freddie Freeman, $57 million from 2028 through 2040. Will Smith, $50 million from 2034 to 2043. And Teoscar Hernandez is going to get $8.5, just a very small $8.5 million from 2030 through 2039. That was a one-year deal that he signed, and they deferred $8.5 million of the $23.5 million. There's some quotes here from Andrew Friedman, president of baseball operations for the Dodgers, from this ESPN story that I will read. Quote, "You have to fund a lot of it right now, and having that money go to work for you. We have a lot of our ownership group are from financial background and can have that money going to work right now and just making it not something that sneaks up on us. We're not going to wake up in 2034 and say, oh my God, that's right, we have this money due. We'll plan for it along the way." Again, it's a tool that everybody has at their disposal, and it's up to you whether or not that you use it. And the Shohei Ohtani contract is unique. It's $680 million of a $700 million contract that is deferred. He's only getting paid actually $20 million right now over the actual course of the contract. Another quote from Friedman that I think is very important here. Quote, "I think the Shohei one was just very extreme, but if you set the Shohei contract aside, the rest are all within the norm and standing operating procedure that a lot of teams have done. But I think the Shohei one is just jarring to people because it's so different, and I think the others just get unfairly lumped into that. I think it's kind of a lazy narrative." Now, I actually agree with Friedman here. I think the Shohei Ohtani contract is so unique because he wanted to defer that money so that they had more ability to sign players, and he gets so much money from endorsements that it allows him to take less right now, get more later. It's tax advantageous for him. There's a lot of good that comes from it, and I think because of that deferral, because of how much that is, it's 680 of the billion that we're talking about here. Like 680 of the 1 billion is just Shohei Ohtani, and it makes it more difficult to properly evaluate the other ones because deferrals have been going on for a long time. There are players and teams that give out deferrals this year. They're going to give out deferrals next year. Bobby Bonilla is the most extreme example of this for the New York Mets. They're still paying him $1 million a season to not play for them. There are teams that have bigger deferral payments than some of their star players are making this season. Deferrals are a part of baseball. It's part of the finances with a sport that is uncapped the way baseball is. Yes, they have a luxury tax, but it is uncapped. You want to spend $500 million on your baseball team? You want to spend $1 billion on your baseball team for a season? You can. There's nothing stopping you other than your appetite to pay that tax bill. Baseball is unique. Deferrals are part of the uniqueness of the game. But the Dodgers didn't invent it. The Dodgers didn't find a obscure rule in the CBA that allows them to do this. They're using a tool that everybody else uses. They are using it to an extreme that we have never seen before. One team do all of this at once. That's fair. I would grant you that. But they're using something that is available to everybody else. And they have to put away the present day value of the contract. So for Shohei Ohtani, we'll use him as the extreme example. Despite him only getting paid, $2 million a season from the Los Angeles Dodgers, actual payments, the present day market value of the contract, considering the deferrals, is like $46 and change million a season. The Dodgers have to take that $46 million and they have to put it in escrow. They have to put it somewhere. They can't spend it. They have to do something with it. Now they're able to put it in escrow and then invest it and then hopefully make enough money to cover the interest. So when they have to pay out that money to Shohei Ohtani during that deferral time period after he's done playing with them, that they've actually made money on the contract. They've got a bunch of guys and gals in their ownership group that work in finance. They feel like they can make money on the contract. They're probably making money on jersey sales and ticket sales and everything else. Winning a World Series, having Shohei Ohtani, everything that comes with that. Dave Roberts appearing in a commercial in Japan. They're making a lot of money from this. They're using a tool to their advantage. It's extreme, but they are using a tool to their advantage. Other teams should try to find a way to do that. One more baseball story here for you, and then maybe I'm not making any promises, maybe we'll talk about National Signing Day. I don't know what grand takes you're going to get from me about National Signing Day. I said earlier in the show I didn't even realize it was a thing today when we were talking about Noah Fifita and the University of Arizona in hour number 1 of the show. But one more baseball story before we potentially get into all of that. The new ballpark that the A's, can't call them the Oakland A's anymore, the A's are building in Las Vegas is now apparently going to cost more than $250 more than it originally was going to. John Fisher, the owner of the team, says, I'm still going to foot my share of the bill. A letter was sent out to the Stadium Authority of Las Vegas. U.S. Bank senior vice president said that Fisher, whose net worth is apparently $3.2 billion, can comfortably afford the now $1.7 billion project. He's getting $300 million in loans from 2 banks. The public sector is chipping in $380 million, so $680 million right there. And there is still a lot of this project yet to be funded. It was originally supposed to cost $1.5 billion. It's now going to cost $1.7 billion. They're going to play in Sacramento until opening day 2028 when they expect the new building to be done. I am excited about baseball in Vegas. I am excited about Major League Baseball being there in that city. I frequently go to Vegas. It is one of my favorite cities. I love it. I have I don't want to call it a family trip, but I have a guy's trip with my dad and some close family friends. We go there every single year around the same time. It's just a yearly tradition of ours, so I'm there pretty regularly. I love it. It's one of my favorite cities. And I've stood up and down the boulevard there and T-Mobile Arena, tucked away there for the hockey, Allegiant Stadium, kind of right outside the strip there for football. And I've stood right across the street from where they are going to build that stadium, and I have always found it very cool, the idea that a baseball team will be playing there, and I think Vegas is going to take to it. That being said, I hate everything about the way John Fisher and the A's have handled this. I hate everything about the way that they left the people in Oakland high and dry. I hate the way they are going about this, having to play in Sacramento in front of 14,000 fans. I hate it. I hate it. I hate it. I think Vegas should have been an expansion team instead of a relocation team. I think Vegas would have been the perfect expansion market. And I think there should be a team in Oakland. And I think John Fisher has not handled himself very well in all of this. Just my personal opinion. I think there was a way to get something done in Oakland. But here we are, and I look forward to seeing this at its conclusion, but it's going to cost more. And for somebody who, listen, finances have been a problem there in Oakland. It's been an issue. It has been something that has forced this situation in the first place. Their battles with the city of Oakland, their battles with threatening to relocate, and then they got to this place where they ended up moving on to Vegas. Major League Baseball needs that situation to be sorted out. They also need the situation to be sorted out in Tampa, and then we can start talking about relocation or expansion. Then we can start talking about adding 2 more teams to Major League Baseball. But until you get the stadium deal in Tampa sorted out, until you get the stadium deal in Vegas sorted out for the A's, don't talk to me about Nashville. Don't talk to me about Portland. I don't want to hear any of that. You got to have your own house in order before you start taking money from outside teams. Because if you can't afford to have the 30 teams running the way that they need to, and the TV deals, which we talked about a little bit earlier in the show, about the TV deals for this league right now, and how Major League Baseball is currently running the operation for, 8 or 9 teams. They're potentially acquiring 5 or 6 more. And the plan for Rob Manfred is to acquire as many of them as he can so that they can sell a national TV deal the way the NBA does, the way the NFL does. And that probably comes with a huge financial debate about what the future of baseball is going to look like. The finances of baseball, I think, are going to have to be upended for that to make sense. I will warn until I am blue in the face. The impending, I don't want to say doom, I don't want to go that far, but the dire situation that I think is around the corner for Major League Baseball with the next CBA. Because I think they're going to have to completely upend the way they operate the sport. I think they're going to have to completely change the finances of the game. And they're going to need teams like the Yankees, like the Mets, like the Dodgers, the big money, big market teams that are making a ton of money off of the TV deals. They're going to need those teams to change the way that they think in order for the sport to grow long term. Because if not, you have a lot of teams like the A's. You have a lot of teams like the Rays that have stadium problems or have TV deal problems or are small market teams. You have problems all across the board. And so you have to figure it out sooner rather than later. It's National Signing Day in college football. Maybe this is going to be an unpopular take to close the show. I can't, not to say that I got excited about it before. I'm not going to try to sell you a story that's not true. I can't get any level of excitement for National Signing Day because these players sign, and I'm not faulting them at all. This is not a shot at them, but they sign, and then they can change their mind. And then now, at the end of the year, you can just enter the transfer portal, and you can just leave. So, usually you would get excited back in the day when you landed a recruit because you then knew, even if that player was NFL bound, they were with your program for 3 years. Because if they transferred, they'd have to sit out a season. And so you just didn't do that. You got a guy, you landed a guy on National Signing Day. You landed a kid. You landed the number 1 quarterback or the number 1 wide receiver. You landed a top prospect, high school recruit. You got excited because you're like, man, that kid's going to be my quarterback for the next 3 seasons. You start dreaming of, oh, man, we can go to this bowl and win the conference. You used to do all that stuff. You can't do that now. You can't talk about the top story on ESPN right now is USC lands commit from a 5-star defensive end who's number 11 in the ESPN top 300, Jakeem Stewart. Now, this is no offense to Jakeem Stewart, but I'm just using him as the example because he is the top story here. Was also visiting Oregon, Ohio State, LSU, USC, all these teams before ending up with USC. I asked the question honestly. Does he finish his college career at USC? Or does he transfer like everybody else transfers? So, no, I'm not getting excited about National Signing Day. What I am getting excited about is we got another show tomorrow for you. Everybody make it a great rest of your Wednesday. We are back tomorrow, the Thursday edition of the program. See ya!